Accessing library computer data.
The world doesn't always adhere to logic. And sometimes when you're lost, you're found.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Continuing our run through of Star Trek Discovery. We're up to the 11th episode of the second season. It's called Perpetual Infinity. It aired on March 28th, 2019, directed by, I think it's Maja Vervillo, or it's either Maja.
I believe it would be Maya, actually.
Oh, is it so this is a Spanish name?
I don't know. I just, a friend of mine in college had a friend whose name was Maya that spelled it that way.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to assume it's probably Maya.
Maya Vervillo, and it was written by Alan McElroy and Brandon Schultz. In this episode, Burnham receives the reunion she's been longing for, but it doesn't go quite as she imagined. Georgiou and Tyler sense a disturbing change in Captain Leland. We're joined by Clay, as always. Clay, how are you?
I'm good. I think the episode of the title of this episode should have been "The Case for Physical Media," because you know what you can't digitally transfer to another ship? A floppy disk.
There's a lot of I thought this was a prime episode for threatening to blow up the Discovery, right? Isn't that the solution to this problem?
Yeah, that's one solution. They didn't consider that, which they usually consider on Star Trek. It's like the first option is blowing up the ship.
Well, they've blown up the ship for less than saving all life in the universe before. So
correct.
It feels like it would be a willing sacrifice to just flip the switch and blow this thing up. But we'll get into it. It's Perpetual Infinity. We have a lot of exposition. We meet Burnham's mother, all that stuff.
And I have a lot of questions.
A lot of questions, and I'll see if I have any answers for Clay after the break. So we're going to take a little short break, play an audio clip, and me and Clay are going to come back and break down Perpetual Infinity.
Mission log 009. Michael, I keep trying to get back to you, but I can never manage to stay. Mission log 027. Mission log 039. Mission log 042. No matter how many times I go back in time, I can't stay anywhere permanently. The anchor keeps pulling me back, 950 years away from you. There are no signs of life anywhere. Antimatter detonation across the galaxy indicates Control wiped everything out. Vulcan, Andoria, Teleprime, Deneva, Earth. This is Earth. As far as I scan, everywhere. I'm alone.
Okay, so with 4 episodes left. This is the 4th one that's left. After this, we have 3 left. We're closing in on the end of the second season. We had a lot of reveals here where we meet the Red Angel, who we learned last week was Burnham's mother, and it turns out to be Kima Greggs from The Wire, who seems very similar to Kima Greggs from The Wire, actually. It's Sonia Sohn, I think her name is. And I don't know, Clay, if you have questions, how about you start us off with this one? Because I sort of have I'm going to have an approach to this episode that might be slightly different from what we've normally done just because of the way that I processed it. But why don't you go first and I'll see if I can slide in after your points.
Well, I had to watch this twice because the first time I watched it, I had no idea what the hell was going on. There was, I had a base, I understood the action that was happening, but like, I couldn't figure out any of the character motivations because they all seemed incredibly inconsistent. Whether it's Culber just reverting back to normal Culber and they're throwing a line saying, well, I joined back up because, I want to help.
Hey, Clay, do I get to yell at you about your defense of Culber last episode?
No, because I maintain in that episode, I think that scene was fine. I just think, much as they do on this show, they throw any character motivations out the door when they need to. Like Georgiou. What the fuck is Georgiou's point at this point in the story? She went from, like, trying to overthrow Leland to then like being weirdly
sympathetic,
supplicant to him.
Yep.
And then now she all kind of cares about Burnham again. I don't know what her point is. I don't know where her allegiances lie. Leland calls her the queen, the most powerful woman in the universe. I don't know how the fuck that's possible.
Right.
Because she's just a person that is not. I don't. Sorry, I'm going all over the place.
She's an evil person.
Yeah. What was I saying? Character motivations are all over the place.
You watched it twice. You were saying that you watched it twice, and then the second time.
explanation for a lot of stuff feels really haphazard. The prime one being the relocation of the Terralisium people, which apparently she just did on a lark, just for the hell of it.
She wanted to test that time could be changed, I guess.
Does she say that?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, because I watched that scene twice and I didn't catch that part. But either way,
I believe she says it in one of the recordings. She's like, I did this just to be sure that I could actually alter the future.
Okay, I missed that line. Yeah. But either way, it still seems kind of weird. I don't understand why she's tethered to the future as opposed to the point where she jumped from, which would be the past.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why she has any knowledge of this of control. Actually, like, she jumps into the future, and did she like piece this stuff together from going back in time and trying to figure out what happened? Like, I don't understand why she knows what.
She seems to know everything because of the 800 jumps that she made into the past, and apparently in these little blips of like seconds of worth of time that she's allowed to go into the past, she has gathered exactly what is going on in the universe at that point.
Yeah. And you say that hyperbolically, but actually not, because she seems to have an understanding of everybody's timeline.
Yes. Like, she knows what happens to Pike.
She knows what happens to Pike. She has been there, unless she was being because she references very specific events. She says she's been at all of these like highly important times for Burnham, like along Burnham's life, like when she was adopted by Spock or Sarek, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And she says this after she says, I let you go a long time ago. So I don't know what her motivations now are, unless she was just saying that to kind of like shine her on or whatever. But, and also, she has a complete understanding of everything that's happening. But
you know what's weird about that? You know what's weird about the jumping thing? Mm-hmm. It's really not the fact that she did it. It's the fact that they said there's 800 jumps, because I thought they were going to tie perpetual infinity into what this lifetime has been like for Burnham's mother, where she exists in this timeless state where she just has to keep jumping back. And if they didn't give it such a hard number, I'd be like, okay, she's been doing this for, time eternal, basically. Like, she's been going back and seeing a little glimpse of everything, and she's managed to piece together. And that's why she's managed to be at all these important events, and why she's managed to see all these historical things, and why she managed to go back to Burnham's, like, growing up things. All of that is fine. It still doesn't really fix the past of why is the Red Angel only showing up now, when every time she appears, it's like this huge explosion of red light, and everyone goes like, what the fuck is that thing coming on? Like, and she's apparently been there for all these private moments, and it doesn't tie with what we know about the Red Angel making its appearance at this point. So I don't know. I don't understand.
And also, I don't understand, God damn it! I just had it in my head, but I lost it. I don't understand what her problem is, because when she gets rocketed into the future, she seems to like. Does she not have control over her suit? Can she not? Like, I don't. There seems to be some disconnect, whether because she jumps into the suit before she gets shot by the Klingons, and then she gets launched 900 years into the future. So, does she clearly, I guess, has control over what period she goes back to?
I think so. It doesn't seem random, because she can go to moments when she needs to be there, like when Burnham dies.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. She's very bad at her job then, I guess.
Well, I mean, the problem here is the problem, in my opinion, is that they're playing a season-long story where time mechanics are a huge part of it, and the longer you spend with the time mechanics, the more you just like this episode. I would have retitled this "Me waving my hands in the air" as everything was going on, and just been like, whatever, like, just who cares? Like, let's get this over with, because my response to watching this one was I lost track. Like, my brain shifted repeatedly while watching this. Like, I would just, it's that thing where meditators say that, like, you notice the thoughts that are coming into your head. Like, you I was watching this, and every once in a while I'd be like, oh, I'm thinking about the Deadwood show that I'm rewatching. Maybe I should pay attention to Discovery instead. Or, I'm thinking about the kids. Or, I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow. I could not stay focused on this because it's too much information. And the irony of it is, I did not walk away from this episode with any different understanding of where the story is going. It didn't change anything. Like, it's all this information that's useless and overly complicated. And you walk away at the end going, yeah, okay, everything is still pretty much on track for what I knew about it before this episode even started. So I don't know why that took so much words to get that point across.
Yeah, and I don't understand the idea of she's being sucked back in through time even though she's not in the time suit. I wasn't totally sure about that whole concept at the end there. And like,
is the suit driving it, or why is she tethered to the past as opposed to the suit? The suit makes sense to me that she's
tethered to the future.
Right, tethered to the future. So the suit doing that makes sense. Like, it has some sort of like systematic failure where it keeps going back to that time point or something. Mm-hmm. But her being magnetically attached to it is drama, I suppose, for drama's sake, because we have to get rid of Mama Burnham, I suppose. Or if not rid of her, we have to get rid of her for the end of this episode to make Burnham think that she's gone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then the biggest piece of information that we learn is that the signals that they got are actually not related to the Red Angel. Right. Or at least
we don't know that they are.
Current version of the Red Angel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Overall, yeah, if you take out the technobabble explanations of stuff, or I mean, even leave the explanations in, yeah, you're not really learning anything substantial. It's just a matter of Leland is now a Borg, I guess. Did you notice that they said struggle is pointless?
Yeah, struggle is pointless. Yeah.
I don't know why they don't just commit and go for it, but
it's got to be 25% different according to all those people, right? So this is their little change.
Yeah, I don't know. This felt like an episode where it was another one where if it felt like it was fine if you ignored everything that they've done up to this point and just were like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing now. Mm-hmm. Because I don't feel like the explanations were really satisfactory and really consistent with what they've been trying to do. But
yeah, I'm almost.
What do you think?
Well, for the rest of the conversation or this episode, I guess I wanted to come in not talking about the temporal mechanics, because I feel like this is like one of
they spend half the episode talking about the temporal mechanics.
The problem is, like, I went to Reddit and I read about this a little bit, and every like opening Reddit thread was like a question that was like, why did this happen? I was like, that's a good question. Why did that happen? And someone would come in with a comment that's like, well, while the ship was exploding and that guy was doing a somersault backwards with a flame coming out of his ass, someone whispered in the background like this line of dialogue, and it's like, okay, yeah, I guess. Like, I understand that maybe there's a justification for this, and I'm definitely not going to watch this episode a ton of times to sort of dig what's going on or like grok everything that's going on here. I'll grant them that it makes sense on some level, and if it doesn't, I also don't want to waste my time or my brain power thinking about it. Like,
that's fair.
I don't think that the time mechanics possibly line up. There's too many questions about what's going on, and time travel in and of itself is, even, in simplistic time travel stories, there's always like loopholes that you can think of. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I thought that I don't want to sound dismissive about like not discussing the time travel or the mechanics of this, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, I'm going to find this one hard to talk about, I suppose, because I don't think it adds much to anything.
Yeah, I think the issues. I think you can sum up the problem with this episode to two instances, at a very illustrative of where the disconnect is as far as things making technical sense and the story elements that they're trying to get across, which is the two times where they have clandestine conversations over basically speakerphone in the middle of a hallway.
Yeah, right.
What the fuck? You can't.
I like the Ash Tyler one. He was kind of crouching down a little bit. He's kind of hiding in the hallway, but just like crouching.
You can't just go into a room and do that. You got to do it in the middle of the hallway where the guy in the wheelchair can roll by and be like, wait, what? What's he going to do this sphere in front?
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that Ash Tyler's trying to talk like this. At least he's trying to, keep it on the DL. Whereas Leland is just saying stuff very loudly. And if you've ever used speakerphone, you would know everybody in the building can hear when people talk this loud on speakerphone.
Yes. Yep. Speak up. You're not near it. I think, well, let's, if we want to dip back into the tech stuff, I guess a better place maybe to get something productive out of it would be like the characterization stuff here, because you had brought up the fact that you think that the character work doesn't really amount to anything because they're willing to throw stuff away.
Yeah.
Discovery in its plot churn does not distinguish between a good idea and a bad idea. It does not have time to linger on something interesting. Because it has just as much time to pay attention to something interesting as it does to something that's terrible. And I thought that the backbone of this, it's another one of these like past regret episodes for me. Like if they had somehow worked the Burnham mother story in more throughout the season, maybe I would care about this when it comes around. But as it stands, it's my criticism. Again, it's like these scenes are just melodrama. It's just characters talking like with tears in their eyes to each other about people. It's like, who the fuck is this person? Like, I've never met this person. What is going on? Why do I care about them? Why, outside of just the pure narrative drive of this is how you create the arc between Burnham and her mother, why does her mother shoo her away at the start?
Right.
What's the point of her not talking to her daughter? There's no point other than making it so that when they reconcile at the end, you can have this moment of like, Mom, I missed you. And she said, I'll miss you too. And then she gets sucked up the butthole of the universe.
She doesn't even do the time-honored time travel shooing away of, I can't talk to you because you can't know what happens in the future or some shit like that.
Right.
Because in that discussion, she gives this little speech, which I actually thought was kind of nice, but contextually, I don't know if it makes a ton of sense, about the timeline, about time being, you can't win against time. It's the only thing that you can't beat, basically.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but then, like, what are we doing here then? Because the whole thing you're trying to do is change the timeline.
Well, I hated that speech, actually, because I don't think that makes any sense for that speech is like Discovery writing where it sounds cool, so they're going to say it, because it doesn't make any. This woman has been defeating time for a very long time. She's been she hasn't been able to stop control, but she's been able to defeat time because she's wearing the suit that allows her to jump around and beat time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's no, and also, why has she been, I guess we're supposed to get the sense that she's beat down from having done this for so long and everything like that. But she is wearing technology that enables her to keep trying. It's not like she's stuck in the future or anything like that. And she can't go back and fix what went wrong, which would make sense about that of being like, well, you can't beat time. Time has crushed us all. But no, she can freely jump back and forth between time. So her sentiment doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm also maybe this is getting too deep into mechanics, but I mean, your whole season is kind of based on this idea. I'm also confused as to what level of contact she's allowed to have. Like, she goes to Spock because Spock can see her.
His dyslexia allows him to see her.
But like everybody else can see her too, because she shows up, like you said, in this giant blast of energy, and then she looks like an angel and shit. But is the idea that she can only go back for like a number of seconds? Is that why she has so little impact on stuff?
I think so, yes. Although her stories seem to imply that she has tried more advanced things. Like she tried to destroy the sphere or something. She tried to do something to the sphere. And then she was also able to like direct the sphere into Discovery's path so that they would find it. So it seems like she can have an impact. So I don't know the mechanics of how the suit work beyond the fact that she can't stay there for infinity amount of time because she will get pulled back.
And I mean, she showed up long enough to destroy the infrastructure of the Baul planet.
Right.
And to, however you would change the gravitational pull of the sphere or whatever, to put it into the path of Discovery, Which, I mean, I guess time travel. But I was going to say, I don't even know why she knows what discovery is. But she's obviously been going back and forth. It just kind of, it brings up some like Terminator questions for me, where it's like, why doesn't she just keep going back further?
Right.
Instead of going back sooner?
Why not kill the guy who invents control?
Yeah, or at the very least, go back and send a message to Starfleet or something and say, dudes, don't do this shit.
Yeah.
And is control something that they've been using since she jumped back the first time? Like, I don't understand her frame of reference for all of this future knowledge that she shouldn't have, other than the fact that she's been jumping back and forth in time and apparently has learned everything about everything.
Well, here's something else I don't really understand. The version of control that's infected Leland, right? Mm-hmm. Is this future control or current control?
I was under the impression it was current control.
So what? So
I mean, it would have to be, right? Because then why else would control be trying to get the knowledge of the sphere? Because they said in this one, which I don't know if this is something that they already said, but maybe they said it in the Arium episode, that if control gets its hands on the knowledge from the sphere, that's how it becomes self-aware.
It's already self-aware. It's referring to itself as I and me throughout the entire opening episode. It doesn't seem to need... My understanding was what they were going to do is that this incredibly advanced technology, when combined with like the infinite knowledge of the universe, would become this killing machine type thing. Mm-hmm. And it already seems to be sentient, as you say. Like it is aware of what it's doing, and it talks about itself and it refers to itself in the first person as if it's like it has its own sort of like consciousness going on. And if it is the future version that's infecting Leland, then that would imply that there is a current version that is not infected somewhere, which as of right now, it seems to not exist. Right. And if it is the future version, it doesn't need the sphere anymore because it's already got the sphere's knowledge. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, I then it would be like its mission from the future is to make sure its past self becomes self-aware,
born.
You know, like that kind of paradoxy thing. So, yeah, I don't know. Because, you're right. I mean, if it's the current version of control that's acting right now, it seems to be as self-aware as you or I would be.
Right.
I don't know where it's going to go from
and
there.
And the fact that it exists like this, it seems weird that no one, when they're talking about control, no one's like, have you ever talked to control? Seems like a real person when you're talking to control. It's like it talks to you and everything. They don't treat it like the computer program that they were talking about earlier. They treat it much more. They treat it much more like a tool in the earlier episodes, and here no one seems to be surprised that it's talking, and the time travel thing just really confuses all that. And I don't, it's one of those, it's just the discovery problem was like, if you don't think about it, it's like, you're like, fine, whatever, like just get this going.
Yeah, this is what we're doing. The bad guy is this thing called control. Burnham's mom is from quote unquote the future, trying to stop quote unquote control from quote unquote winning. Sure, I guess. I don't know. This episode had so much technobabble in it that my eyes were starting to glaze over at the number of times that they were trying to come up with, explanations or hand wavy reasons for stuff. It's really difficult to have the character stuff that they're trying to do land when the support system for it is so like questionable and and quote, don't worry about it, that kind of thing. It's just the fact that despite what happened earlier in the episode, they have a scene with Burnham and her mom at the end where they cry about having to be split up again, and it's like, well, she already told you that she didn't care and it was bigger than. And I guess, like I said, you could argue that she was doing that to avoid
contaminating the timeline.
Well, no, avoid like connecting back with her again. Like, she's become so hardened about it. She's like, listen, I let go of you a long time ago. This isn't about blah, 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 blah. This is about fixing the future and saving the future or whatever.
Well, that's the other thing with her time crushes everything speech. shouldn't she be more aware of how fleeting time with her daughter is at that point? Shouldn't the only thing she'd be celebrating be like, time crushes everything, so we need to cherish these moments right now that we have that are going to be taken from us? Instead, her attitude is, you know what, this isn't even worth anything because we're all going to die anyway. We're all going to die, so why even bother getting to know you?
Like, imagine in The Visitor if every time Cisco showed up, he was like, Jake, I don't even want to talk to you. Because what's the point, right? I'm just going to disappear in a minute anyway.
Right. I don't care about what's going on in your life. You know, I'm just going to go back. I'll see you again in 50 years. That it completely undermines it just doesn't make any sense to me. Her reaction to the time, Burnham's mother's reaction to the time jumping that she's doing and how it interacts or interferes with her understanding of the other characters. And you could borderline say she's unhelpful to everyone who's trying to sort of solve this problem for her. And it's very strange. And I think that they only do it to create some kind of arc there where there isn't even really an arc by the end of it.
Yeah. And it's weird because I mean, I guess maybe you're supposed to infer this stuff, but it just feels kind of clunky to me where just to have her have her mom so cavalierly talking about stuff that you've really got no indication that she would know. Like, they don't even have a scene where she's like, I've done this 800 times and I've learned X about Y and I know that blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just, she just starts talking about stuff that is part of the story with no indication of how or why she knows that stuff. And that's why I feel like this weird, like, God level of knowledge she has is so jarring because, I mean, they show you these videos or whatever about her jumps and all, you know, the stuff but they're all the videos that you watch are all based on the same storyline for her, which is like trying to stop control. And then when she's like doing like a Santa Claus thing with Chris Pike, and he's like, what do you mean I've been a very bad boy this year? You know, that kind of thing. It's like, well, why does she know that? Like, there's no, she never talks about her level of knowledge. She just starts throwing stuff out, and people are fairly unfazed by it and just chalk it up to, well, she's a time traveler. Of course she knows stuff. I don't know. It's, I don't know if I'm being too hard on the level of explanation for that stuff, but it just feels really jarring. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would sort of describe my reaction as frustrated by it. Yeah. More than like the episode kind of had me begging for the end of the series, just so that it's like I don't have to think about what they're trying to lay down anymore. Because mostly due to the redundancy of I know where this is all kind of going, and maybe the only big change here was Leland, what happened to Leland and his sort of like humanization of the control or whatever is going on there. But even the Section 31 stuff stuck out to me on the character level. It's because it was the first time I think we've ever seen that group interact this season. Like, outside of them being present when some of the Discovery crew is, we don't get a lot of scenes. Maybe there's been one or two, like when they rescue Tyler from Borath or whatever, and they have to give the baby to Borath or whatever.
His wife.
When, like, the problem is when they see, when Georgiou and Tyler are listening to Leland, apparently, my understanding is here, they think something is up with Leland because Leland is all of a sudden very like competent at his job at being Section 31. Yes. And that just felt like such a moment of we don't know anything about these characters, and I have no idea what's motivating any of the Section 31 people. Like, they're all just kind of existing. I don't know what Georgiou is doing. I don't know why Tyler exists. And also, I was like, oh my God, maybe the show finally killed off a useless character at the end of this. No. And they're like, no, we beamed him back. He's all right. He's going to be fine. See you next week.
Well, I think it's a big mistake to beam him back to Discovery. I think he should have stayed on the Section 31 ship, because it looks like, based on the teaser for next week, that because my first thought was, okay, just blow up the Section 31 ship and, you know, bing bang boom, problem is done. But then I was like, oh, obviously there are apparently other people involved in Section 31 who we just never see, whether it's on the ship or on the space station.
Yep.
But there's that one shot of a bunch of dead people floating through space, so I assume he jettisons the rest of the crew.
That might be the other ships, Section 31 ships, doing that too.
Oh, maybe. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't think there's going to be anybody else on the Section 31 ship other than Leland. So I think it would have been nice to keep Tyler on that ship, to have those two have some sort of a foil instead of putting him back on Discovery where he can just stand in the background and not do anything.
Well, he's going to be laying down because he took that stab into the chest. Yeah, but
thank God the Klingons come back next week.
I don't think it was. If he had died, I wouldn't have been upset by it. It would have been like, okay, the show finally came to terms with the fact that this character is kind of useless and they're going to off him at this point. It would have been a terrible death, I think. It wasn't really deserved or earned or amounted to anything. But I thought that they were going to clean house a little bit, and they didn't do that. They just beam him off at the very end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leland, and I guess we should just talk about Georgiou for a little bit, because I continue to hate Georgiou in this. I don't understand her. I don't like the performance at all. I don't understand everyone on the internet who's praising Michelle Yeoh for this performance. This performance is bad, in my opinion. Her character is apparently going through this huge growth and development thing that no one ever talks about. Like no one brings up why this is happening or what's going on with her or which master she serves or anything. And I don't see, has there been anything else in the season that has indicated that she's gone through some kind of growth pattern besides the fact that she just wobbles between loyalties?
No, not at all. I don't even know what her loyalty is other than the fact that she has a fleeting connection to Burnham, which is people talk about a lot, but is not really based on anything.
Yeah.
They set her up as having this sort of ulterior motive against Leland earlier in the season, but then they dumped that, and now she just does whatever Section 31 tells her to do. Then they dumped that now that she knows that Leland's a bad guy. But
she's threatening Burnham, and that causes her to dump that to protect Burnham, I guess, is what they're trying to say.
Yeah. And okay, I guess, but I don't feel any consistency. Like those turns don't register with me because there's nothing consistent about the way that she acts in other scenes or anything up to that point. Like
she doesn't spend time with Burnham. It's not like this has been a season of working side by side with Burnham, and therefore she learned something about her. It's just they have fleeting interactions every once in a while, and apparently this has led her to care about this person who is, we've been told, nothing like her mirror universe counterpart. Yeah, and they set up this ulterior motive thing earlier in the season, but then anytime that they have a scene with her in Section 31, she's just going along with the book. With the Section 31 play. Yeah. Like they don't imply that she's trying to undercut anything or whatever. And even in this situation, it's not like she's trying to capitalize. Like there's nothing about what she is doing as far as downloading this knowledge that is trying to capitalize on the situation for her own gain. She's just doing what Section 31 told her to do. And then she changes her mind because the possibility of Burnham getting hurt comes up. Like, yes. Honestly, it would be satisfying if it turned out that she was just downloading all that stuff to her iPhone or something. Like she's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll take this information and download it to the Section 31 ship, and then she like redirects it to her own personal whatever. At least that way she's doing something that is consistent with her sort of like sneaky element of her character. You know what's really killing me watching this too, character-wise, is brace yourselves, everyone. I'm currently watching through Buffy the Vampire Slayer again while I've been working. Oh yeah. And the character work on that show is so good and it's so consistent. And the changes that the characters go through are so consistent and well done and treated well within the story that they're telling, that watching this stuff, which is just like a bunch of stuff into a blender and, wherever you end up splattered on the wall is where your character motivation lies now, it's just so frustrating. Yeah. I'm in the middle, not the middle, I'm at my start of the Deadwood rewatch. And I'm like, what is this series where characters' motivations are told through story.
Yeah.
What kind of arcane magic is this where all these plot threads are going on and they come together and there's like a theme to the episode and you understand at the end of it like what sacrifices have had to been made and who's become compromised across the entire thing. And this you come back to this and it's just like Paul Stamets is talking a mile a minute to Ash Tyler, who has a stupid question to ask him, and then Pike comes in and looks concerned, and George is going to flip-flop back and forth, and then we're going to have a kung fu fight against the Terminator for a little bit. And I don't know. It's
Why is she stuck in the future? That's my number one question right now that nobody seems concerned with, on the show at least. I don't understand why she's stuck tethered to the future. Like, even when she shows up 900 years in the future, she doesn't say something like, shit, my time circuits are broken, so I can't go back to, because her first thought is, when she jumps into the suit and heads off, she plans to go back in time an hour.
Yes.
And get everybody out of there before the Klingons show up, but she ends up getting rocketed 900 years in the future, and do
the Klingons not damage the suit when they break in? Is that not what happened? I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so because they slow down the laser blast as she's getting out of there, so I assume it never hits her.
Okay.
But there's nothing to indicate that her time circuits or whatever are broken. Like, it would be at least more satisfying if she was like, yeah, I've been jumping back and forth 800 times because I never know where I'm going to show up. But it seems like she has complete control over where she's going.
So
why is she tethered to the future, and what's stopping her from going back and stopping her family from getting killed?
I don't know. I don't know that, and I don't want to move off the points. I know.
I'm sorry. It's just one of those things that's sticking with me in my head. Like, another one is. Well,
I was going to tie it into one of my weird things that was happening, which ties into the suit. Is that we had been told that the suit was futuristic technology in earlier episodes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The suit is not futuristic whatsoever. No. So why do they think that it's futuristic technology? They have, just because it's time travel, but they've time traveled in this series already at this point. Like, they know how to time travel. So it's just the show being loosey-goosey in order to, it's the bait and switch thing that the show does. It's like, okay, we'll send you off on this direction thinking the suit and the wearer are from the future. Oh, never mind. The suit is actually modern technology, and it's a person that we sent into the future who's using it. Yeah. Unless they've done some kind of modification.
That might be the semantics argument with that, is I don't know if they say explicitly it's future technology as much as they say it's from the future, which technically is not a lie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. And the other one I was that they kind of slipped under the rug is the scene where the AI is taking the different holographic forms and talking to Leland. It says that it has that whole speech about chain of command, and it doesn't matter what I say, people are just going to follow it and not question it.
Yeah.
Is that the hand-waving explanation as to why nobody bothered to find out that Spock didn't kill anybody?
I was interpreting that as this is the plan going forward, that it's going to do that. You think they'll tie it into the past events that have already happened?
Well, no, I thought maybe that was their explanation, because I still think that's a huge. I think that is a plot hole explaining how Spock is framed for murder for people who are very much not dead, and it would just take a phone call to figure out that these people are not dead.
Yes. Right.
So, is the assumption here that the AI is saying that the chain of command is so regimentally adhered to that they could just put that out there and nobody would question it, even though all it would take is like one confirmation to prove that it's not the case?
I can't not say that's the case, I guess.
Yeah.
That could be the way that they would consider wrapping that up. I was only thinking of it in the future sense, where this thing is plotting some kind of action where it's going to send a, Order 66 to all the ships, and then something will happen.
I figured that it meant that as well, but I didn't know if that was just their way of trying to tie up that loose end.
It might be. What was the what was the point of Leland getting stabbed in the eyeball last episode when he's not even infected by the AI through that?
I thought he was.
No, because stabs
they drill him in the
neck.
back of the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Unless Unless there was no projector projecting the hologram. Maybe it was his eye. I don't know. Maybe that's how he could see the hologram or something. I don't know.
It's like I thought the needle implies to me that's how he's infected, but they infect him with a huge needle in this episode, and he seems to be okay prior to that. So my thing would have been like, why not shoot electricity out of the console to knock him down? And that would have felt more Star Trek-y. Yeah.
Well, anytime that they show his, Borg side acting up, for lack of a better term, it's always right around his eyeball too. Yeah. So I don't know.
Maybe it's like a vaccine treatment. You need a couple of them to really feel the full effects. Get his teeth.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that seems like it. I don't know. It seems like two story elements written by different people, kind of in a vacuum from each other, where it's like you poke him in the eye and imply that he's getting infected at the end of the last one, but then it's like, oh, we need to have another scene where it talks to the thing, and then he really gets infected, and we can't not do something to him in that scene, so let's stab him in the back of the head.
Yeah, it feels like they had that plot point down, and then they realized that they had to have him somehow reveal Control's motives, but they couldn't work it into while Leland was Control. It wouldn't make sense to have Leland talking about that stuff at that point. So we need Control to talk to Leland and then infect him. Unfortunately, we've already stabbed him in the eyeball in the previous episode. So it's not a big deal. It's just one of those things. It's like, why is this? Like, why has this happened this way? It's very strange.
Yeah, I think the thing you said about Control already being sentient is a fairly large story issue, and also, I don't know. What is this? What is the knowledge involved in this sphere that is going to turn this thing into a omniscient killing machine?
I would have accepted it as the sphere holds so much information that any semi-intelligent artificial intelligence would gain so much knowledge from it that it becomes sort of godlike. Like that was what I thought that they were going to do, the broad strokes of that kind of story. Like you don't want the super good at developing itself artificial intelligence learning too much information, because then it will just surpass you very quickly because it'll handle that info much better. And I thought that was going to be you could almost make the argument that sentience is born of this like sort of just incredible knowledge that this thing has. And what I thought they were going to do was be the more modern take on AI, is that AI doesn't even need to be conscious. Like a computer program that is effectively good enough at doing what it does is not conscious in and of itself. But if it's good enough at doing what it's doing, it could become the kind of existential threat that Control becomes in the series. Yeah. But they went around that by having the thing talk to you. Like it is a person. It's a person who is infecting other people, and it's sentient, and it's walking around and has its own motivations. I thought they were going to just modernize it by totally avoid that. We do the Skynet thing where Control is kind of there, and Leland is just kind of an automaton for it at that point. Like it's not like a person trying to do something. It's just he's under the control of it, and he's pushing buttons and stuff that the thing can't do. And they moved away from that, and I don't understand. And if I would have almost preferred if it was future Control that came back and kickstarted it and then died, so that at least it would have been like, oh, that's the start of the time loop, is it had to come back to kickstart the process. Right. But that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, Control seems to have a certain set of wants and desires that implies that it is more than just a computer program. Where yes, Skynet, they make it a point to talk about in the Terminator, if I remember correctly, that Skynet basically destroys the world based on an algorithm. It's not like Skynet hates humans or anything like that. It's
self-defense. It defends itself by eliminating the threats, which is what Control seems to be wanting to do, except Control has a much more personal take on things that I think is unnecessary.
Yeah, could you imagine like Terminator 2 if the T-1000 stopped every like 15 minutes to give a long-winded talk about being and existence and shit?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
It defeats the sci-fi, and especially the fact that you just haven't seen Control or whatever. I feel like we're approaching the end of it. So let's play an audio clip anyway, and then we're going to come back and give our final thoughts about this episode called Perpetual Infinity.
What fight are we supposed to be continuing, Spock? Everything we try fails. Now with no suit, no time crystal. It'll always be one step ahead of us.
Respectfully, Dr. Burnham was incorrect. Now it does matter. What happened before no longer exists. What will happen next has not yet been written. We have only now. That is our greatest advantage. What we do now, here, in this moment, has the power to determine the future. Instinct and logic, together. That is how we will defeat control in the battle to come. We will find a way. All of history can change with our next move.
All right, so if you enjoyed the content today, you can support the show at patreon.com/thepenskyfile. And a couple dollars a month, you get extra stuff, and it's a great way to help keep the content coming, and we greatly appreciate it. And we'd also like to give a shout-out to Captain-level supporters Andrew Chirlog, Ben Douglas, Bradley Killens, Captain Quark, David K., Decker Sebastiani, Dwayne Hackett, Eric Johnson, Jackie P., Jay Stanley, Joint Mango, Kyle Barrett, Matt Flores, Matthew Cutler, Matt Ross, Michael Pond, Mike Burnett, Nathan Elliott, Nick Sergi, Robert Cummins, Andrew Chirl, Russ Graham, Samuel Custer, Santos Gonzalez, Sean Spinobi, Stephen Cobb, Tarek Latif, and Will Yates. It's a different order of names, and it kind of threw me off a little bit. But Clay, I didn't mean to pull the cord on our discussion, but I felt we were going to go down another 20 minutes of like, why did this happen in this episode? Yeah. And
no,
go ahead.
I think the problem with episodes like this is you end up just in a circular kind of thing because, like you said, nothing really moved forward. They're not really advancing the story that much. It's just a lot of like exposition, but not really exposition that makes sense. It's exposition that just is there to
explain how we got. It's an exposition to explain how we got to this point that we're at right now, and it's not. You're really not advancing anything. They really just kind of strung together the story that explains why we are at this point. And maybe this episode is kind of an inflection point going forward because we now know everything pretty much. You know, there's maybe a few things we don't know, but we know pretty much exactly what's going on. So every episode from here on out has to deal, as Spock says, with the now, the moment that's in the present. They don't have this tech and they just have to find the solution and fix it in their own timeline.
Hamlet. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Terrible.
So are they supposed to treat him, is he supposed to be like kind of autistic?
Why do you think that?
Or like Asperger's or something? I don't know. Just the way that I'm not saying this is a bad thing because I think that's a perfectly fine analog if you want to make that. But it was specifically, I don't know why this stood out to me in that way, but specifically that scene where he like lays out this elaborate plan and then he just goes, I like science. I don't know. It just felt like,
I think it's just the show trying to be charming with these characters.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
I think using him, clearly he has a learning disability, which is something you can put onto him. I think it's perfectly reasonable to treat him as sort of like a analog for that if you want to.
Yeah. I guess I have to admit that I was wrong in the previous episode where his dyslexia was mentioned. I was like, they just used it as a crutch to explain why no one could understand the coordinates. So I guess they technically paid this storyline off where his dyslexia is somehow enables him to see the Red Angel or something. I'm not going to say that's good, but yes, if people want to nitpick my criticism of it, they've definitely tied up that loose end.
Did they say anything more than just reiterating that fact?
Well, we didn't know that his dyslexia, before this episode, we didn't know that it was the reason that his visions of the Red Angel were coming to him, which I still don't really understand.
Right. But I don't understand that either because eventually everybody can see it.
Right.
Like, it's not like everybody on Discovery has not seen the Red Angel at this point, right?
Right.
She literally showed up at the end of the last episode, and they blasted her with a Ghostbusters ghost trap.
Right. So I don't know why she said that. And that, unless something has changed with have the red signals changed something?
I don't know.
Because, all right, so say that Spock was the only person able to see her, right? That would have made her statement that she was able to see Burnham growing up make more sense, because if no one else can see her, then that allows her to kind of sneak up on Burnham and spy on her. However, Spock is present for some of those scenes. So shouldn't he have been like the Haley Joel Osment from Sixth Sense going, oh my God, there's a red angel right there.
Yeah. I would hand wave that by saying that the red angel becomes more visible as they get closer to some sort of like event horizon kind of thing.
Okay.
Where it's like there's a moment of an apex of the action kind of thing, where it's like the further back in time she goes, the more dissipated her signal is. So like that's why as a kid, Burnham or nobody else could really see her, but now as they're getting closer and closer and closer to the point of action, her signal is clearer and she can actually be that kind of thing, which is clearly not what they're going to do.
This is your headcanon, to be clear. Yeah, this is your.
It's not. I wouldn't even call it headcanon. I would see like if I had to explain it, if I was going to write an explanation for it, it would probably be something like that. But that's not what they're doing on the show, so I'm not going to call it headcanon because that implies that it would make sense in the context of the show.
I wonder if it has to do with the red signals. If the red signals have changed something. I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
I was wondering if the red signals, if it's going to be like, you could make the argument that she doesn't know what the red signals are because in her timeline they haven't happened yet. But I was thinking the red signals might be some sort of like conclusion that she can actually affect multiple times at the same time. So she's saying, like time is malleable, blah, 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 blah. So why does she have to go from point A to point B? Why can't she go point A to point B, C, D, E, and F at the same time? You know what I mean? Like if they kind of fold over on each other like that.
So she can be in separate parts of the universe at the same point in the time.
Yeah, something like that. Like imagine the idea of All Good Things, where they're all shooting the tachyon beam at the same area across 3 different timelines, like something like that. I also do not care for the explanation at the beginning that they didn't realize it wasn't Michael because the mitochondrial DNA was the same between mother and daughter. Like they said before she shows up as the mom, they said without a doubt this is you. Yeah, without a doubt.
They based it on DNA evidence, and apparently the crack team on Discovery is pretty good. They're not the team you want to go to for your STD test or anything, because they're just like, hey, did a DNA test. I thought it was close enough. Sorry. There's a lot of base pairs in DNA. I'm not expected to get every single one of them right? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if unless you started with mitochondrial DNA and stopped there, don't you think you should have figured out that these are 2 different people?
Yeah.
Because those things are the same, but if you extrapolate those more towards the surface, they should get different, right?
I still was hoping for my explanation about Burnham wears the suit, but apparently that's
honestly, I don't think that's out of possibility yet, because I don't think that the Red Angel is gone. Obviously, I assume she's going to come back at some point. I think there might still be a possibility that it's Burnham. I think that explanation makes a lot more sense. But
I'm waiting for Section 31 or Starfleet to show up with their extra prototype of the suit
some shit like that's probably going to happen, or I don't know. Somehow, who the fuck knows?
What's
they should have had, you know what they should have done? They should have had the field go down and then Burnham pull a thing she did last year at the end of the season and run up and jump and grab onto her, so they both get sucked into the future. And then she has to use the suit to come back to the past.
Right. Yeah, and they can use their dark matter trick to save her.
Yeah,
or
the
whatever.
dark matter. Now, the dark matter, is that from that asteroid
Yes.
that they pulled in?
Yep.
Okay. Because when they said that initially, I was like, dark matter? Where the hell did that come from?
That's right. It sits next to the time crystal in the lab. Yeah.
Is her time crystal broken? Is that why she can't? I don't know. Fuck it. I'm done.
The Leland shot the time crystal at the end.
No, but like before that, it was fine though, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think he
Okay.
breaks it when he shoots the suit with it. So
all right.
maybe that's why the suit isn't operable anymore at the end.
Cool.
Let's call it a day there. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. You can support the show by going to all the social media links. It's Facebook, Twitter, Discord. Support the show at patreon.com/thepenskyfile. And then otherwise, just mention the show wherever shows are mentioned on the internets. Your Thanksgiving dinner, a wake, whatever you think is appropriate. And we will...
We're big at brisses, I've heard.
That's it. Clay, do you have anything you want to say before we go?
No, I'm frustrated going into the end of this season. I guess this episode was fine if it's just like I'm folding laundry and watching an action sci-fi TV show and not really thinking about it. But it just seems to be they're fighting getting better so hard.
Yeah.
Like the fight against actually getting better is so fierce that I hope eventually that the quality prevails.
I didn't like this one. I found it very frustrating and kind of annoying by the time that it was over. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes from here. I'm a little bit surprised there's still 3 episodes, but I guess that there is still a decent amount to get done in that time. But that's it. We'll see how it is next week. We'll see where it goes from here. I don't know the title of next week's episode because they haven't released it yet, I don't believe. But we'll see you next week when we tackle the next episode of Star Trek Discovery. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.